Well, I'm gonna be playing tape recorder all over again as usual. And I'm always repetitive because the things are always true and they're still gonna continue to be true. So, I see this. I haven't watched the video yet because I haven't had the chance. But I see this right here. In one, it really just shows like how a lot of people live in this like la la land and really don't know what's already normalized and legalized. So for one, chomoism is and has always been normalized in literally every society till this day. Of course, America/Babylon will eventually be like very well known for extreme chomoism and all other paraphilias. But as of right now, it's normalized everywhere. 2, 14 is already the age of consent anyways. And it actually used to be like lower than that, but it was made to 14 after a while. I don't even know what number I was at, but you can already marry somebody of any age. You just have to go to court, and then the parents will marry their kid off to whatever chomo. Like it's already legalized. I can't think of when it wasn't legalized. And with the laws put in place, which revolve around ageism, and how youth don't have rights to escape abuse, the person can divorce till 18 or older. And how old depends on the situation, because it could possibly be never if they're like, I don't know, in a conservatorship or something. But yeah, America already has laws where a kid can be married off to some chomo and can't divorce till 18. And then, of course, you can be married off to some chomo at 18, so there's that. The thing about it is, though, that once more ageist laws are put in place to keep youth from having rights, the parents, of course they already had like more rights, but they started to have even like more control that didn't lead to anything good. So it went from like what I mentioned pretty often, how not too long ago there was still a point in time where 14-year-olds are marrying each other, teenagers are marrying each other and dropping out of high school to work in factories, and they were buying homes and stuff. But then eventually they started making it even more restrictive to where now your parents had to be the ones to take you to court to marry you. And then you notice that like more and more the marriages even stopped happening. But that's also as society got like more perverse and just into like sleeping around in Western dating culture. And ever since like early childhood, I've always had people act like, I don't know, I'm sick in the head for pointing this out. But it's actually sick that like a lot of Americans think that child marriage is when two teenagers marry each other, which realistically a teenager isn't even necessarily a child, but anywho. Like in some states you can even date somebody as old as 24 if you're 17. But of course, as lawyers always say, there actually are no laws against who you can date. There's only laws against who you can have sex with, supposedly, because that's not even really true. And typically, SA is going to come from a family member or a family friend, so it's very unlikely for something to happen, for somebody to be charged. Not just because, as I always say, the law officials, lawyers, judges, etc., are at the Levite, Freemason, Triple K, chomos, and the reason that abusers don't get charged is because they don't like to charge their own. That's also why all these ageist laws are put in place that keep youth having no rights, and the only quote-unquote right youth have is really to like be SA'd pretty much. And then the other thing is that I noticed a long time ago that law officials hate youth, and that's also why younger people can get a life sentence or a longer sentence for any and everything. Like, youth can get charged and go to jail for things that aren't even crimes for fully grown people. And put all the other cash for kids system branches to the side, America locks up more children than any developed nation, and a lot of children, or quote-unquote children, are thrown in adult prisons, which honestly, in adult prisons are adult institutions, since older people have more rights, your worries are often more so the other inmates than the staff. Not that the staff aren't abusive, but still, you have to worry more about like the weird little Virgo Vasal essay rituals from the other inmates, which I've been told by sex trafficking victims that the cops and the PO officers, guards, whatever they're called, actually set up a lot of the essay, and they actually like set people up to be taken through Virgo Vasal. But anyways, in institutions for younger people, it's the staff you have to worry about being essayed by and taken through whatever abuse by, more than even the other kids in there. Which is really the point of institutions, because there is no good institution. Really, they're all for MK Ultra. But that's besides the point. And the point I'm getting at with that is, as I always mention, you're a child or you're a kid until somebody wants to lock you up, take you through the weird sexual stuff like this video is about, or pretty much blame you for something. And that's something else that I've noticed. It's like you're like kind of like how Americans, for whatever reason, like to make jokes about all the Virgo Vasal sodomy rituals that go on in prisons. And whenever like a kid gets locked up for something that they did or didn't do, or usually they're being like framed to a certain extent, especially in like certain situations, people will be like, they're gonna learn their lesson in prison in the showers. And it's like, why is people getting turned out so funny to people anyways? But I guess it's only funny because it's not them. And then if the person ever does get out, they're the new homeless split person with all types of trauma that no longer knows what gender they are, that people like to talk so much junk about, which that's a part of the homeless industrial complex. Really, all Cash for Kids system branches and human cash cow branches are a part of the homeless industrial system or complex. They all really set you up to become homeless for a lot of reasons, aside from the complex trauma stacked on top of each other. But what other things could I say? Oh yeah, something else that I mention often that a lot of people like feel weird about, because people are they're not taught to think for themselves, and so they just feel like it's weird. Which the fact that people think this is weird, like people don't have emotions, is really weird to me. But this is exactly why the schools were able to take over what they call sex ed, because the parents weren't doing it because, I don't know, people are brainwashed. And I feel like maybe there's a side of the flipped around religious doctrine. That's why the parents stopped doing it. But also another thing that I realize is that since most people, male or female, have been through some type of like sexual trauma, even if it's just like early sexual exposure from like media or TV, it makes them have like some weird like feelings around everything. And so they can't really talk to their kids about anything like that, because they'll start having flashbacks or dissociating. But anyways, I often mention that age of consent laws weren't actually put in place to keep people from being essayed or taken advantage of, or whatever people think. Because I mean, if that was the case, it wouldn't be 14 or 18, but that's not what it was for. It was actually put in place to keep people who are the same age, younger people who are the same age, from like getting with each other. Now, I know like a lot of people are gonna always feel however about this, but it's really true. That's actually the reason why, for one, the kid victim is charged when they get essayed. The kid victim is actually the one that gets charged with quote-unquote CP or CSA imagery. Like, I've met so many kids throughout my life, and even ones who are 12 or younger, who actually have all types of CP charges and are on the sex offender registry as a literal child, actual child, younger than 12, because they got abused, but they got charged for it. And that's actually what happens. And for whatever reason, a lot of people seem to not know this or not want to believe this, and people be like, show me a statistic or show me an article. And it's like, show you an article of what, this is real life. And I mean, when people get older, they usually don't want to talk about this. But I mean, when they're in this situation or when they're still younger, they'll talk about it. Like, I've met a lot of people personally throughout my life till now who have these charges on them for their own abuse. And that's with actual chomos. But even if a teen or whatever sends whatever pictures to somebody their own age, if it is reported to the police, they get charged with quote-unquote CP and put on the registry. And I know this is also going to sound weird, but like, maybe you live in a state where like 14 isn't the age of consent. And so, if you catch your 14-year-old doing whatever in the world with another 14-year-old or 15-year-old, whatever, it depends on the state really. If that's not the age of consent in your state, then you can actually take both of them to court and get both of them charged and put on the registry for that. So the age of consent laws still revolve around ageism. They actually weren't put in place to keep people from getting that state, which, to be truthfully honest, I mean, to a certain extent, you can only protect somebody so much, but really, it's the parents' job to do that. And unless something's secretly going on with like a teacher or your kid gets assaulted walking down the street, as I've probably already said, it's typically going to be a relative or a family friend, so still pretty much a relative who abuses the kid anyways. And it's also commonly allowed by the family because they don't really care, and like, it's a lot of deep generational bullcrap going on. So the person still wouldn't get charged regardless, because actually the person can only be charged and jailed possibly if the kid actually has guardians who care and aren't like trying to cover up stuff to take the person to court. If there is no older person to actually fight for the kid and take the person to court, they're not going to get charged or go to jail anyways. So like, it's still unlikely they'll go to jail, but definitely if you want to use age of consent for like something to stop abuse, which really it couldn't anyways, then that still would depend on if there's like some older guardian who's actually willing to fight for the kid, which still may not matter because of like who runs the laws in the courtrooms, but I'm just saying. I also commonly compare legalities, especially when it comes to abuse of really anyone of any age, to hidden menu items. It's all really legal, but it's like not openly legal, even though really if you like have your eyes open, you would know that it really is. But the only thing that they're actually doing is making this an open legality, which is really weird though, because I feel like a quick Google search could tell people that 14 is the age of consent anyways. I feel like maybe what this law would more so mean is that if a 14-year-old wants to actually go there self and like marry somebody, not even just a chomo, but marry somebody of any age, they now have the right to do that, which of course is like really for predators. So that way, even if the parents say no, the kid can go do it. That's what this is really about. Because legally, youth are seen as property. So a parent can already do whatever they want with their kid, and they can already marry their kid off to whoever. But really what these laws are going to mean is that even if you say no, you're not going to be able to do anything about it because your kid said yes. That's what this is about. And typically, kids who fall into these types of situations are in like some bad, not the best family situation. Not even necessarily that the parents are like terrible, but just because it's an agenda to break down the family system. So like, the parents are at work all day, so you don't really know what your kid is doing, and they're probably already married to like some 90-year-old. Then the brainwashing, which has already been pushed by the media. Like, I often say that really by 2016 to 2018, all the kids were already turned out. A lot of people may not know their kids are turned out, but through trauma that they had that you may not even know happened, commonly by a relative, or maybe you do know, or maybe you're the one doing it, or just from like brainwashing from schools and media, they're probably already turned out and into some mess. So pretty much what this means is that if your 10-year-old's been groomed, they're going to be able to go marry whoever, and you're not going to be able to say no. Because, of course, that's the only rights that youth can get is to really still not have rights, but to have, like, a fake sense of freedom, which I guess is the definition of America anyways. And it's funny because if you actually notice these things and you actually see through all the bullcrap, you're going to be the weird one, the bad guy, the one that needs trauma therapy. But realistically, people are freaking out over something that has never not been a thing. The only thing that's going to change is like the younger people actually having rights to go marry somebody themselves, regardless of whether parents say no or not. I also hate how people try to make child abuse like a political thing, because it's very obvious that both sides of the same bird are both deeply into CSA and all other types of abuse as well. And people often say that they wish that people cared as much about physical and emotional abuse, which is actually manipulation/emotional witchcraft, as they pretend to care about CSA. Because as much as people are like claiming that they care about this, it often really is that people feel more upset about other people being able to abuse their kids and not just them. And I could say so much about that, but it's all really superficial, to be honest. Just like how conservatives will talk about the liberal thing and like the gender stuff and like people bringing kids into that. But I mean, both sides are the same thing, and it's like they both promote child abuse, but they try to like make child abuse some political thing when it's really not. Like before the liberal thing got the way it did openly, or even really kind of in general, conservatives were always known for being the ones to promote child abuse and CSA that people claim isn't CSA. Conservatives and Southerners and Southern Christians especially, and Christian nationalists were always known to be the ones to promote stripping kids' clothes off and beating them, which is SA, and whoopings are actually rooted in SA. But nothing was wrong with that because it's like flipped around to not seem like a form of SA. But then these are the same people that wonder why their kids are turned out and wearing dog collars and beating each other with paddles and stuff. There's actually a video that got removed off TikTok, or at least the person got banned, but there are like re-uploads of the video. And there's a Southern Christian dude who actually was making paddles in his garage or something. And he was talking about rounded end is for rounded bottoms that kids have, which is very interesting. And the paddle said, make something America, had American flag and something about making kids great again or something like that. But then when their kids develop the paraphilias, or now called quote-unquote fetishes that come from this type of trauma, they blame liberals. And then there was something else I was supposed to say. So really, wouldn't they just be re-legalizing for 14-year-olds to get married? I think this was the last thing I wanted to mention, and I mention this pretty often. Especially this one case, can't remember the girl's name, but back in the 2010s, there were various videos about this girl's situation who obviously had neglectful parents and low self-esteem. And so she was on some online chat room or Facebook, something like that, which I would not meet somebody off Facebook, but I'm not going to go into that. And she met some dude, or supposed dude, whatever in the world, and he convinced her to send nudes, and then everything went downhill from there. And this is a very common situation. I've met plenty of people who have been through this, but luckily the ones I've met are still alive so far, because they're still depressed. Then they start going through, I think it's called sextortion or blackmail. And so the Chomo starts sending the pictures to people in the kids' town, in their school, and etc. And then eventually, because I'm actually forgetting what I'm talking about, I'm supposed to be telling the girl's story. So, there were a couple like documentaries about her. The parents were crying or fake crying. Really, they were just embarrassed, to be honest, but they didn't really care that much, obviously. Of course, the local police department doesn't care. They didn't do anything. They wouldn't find the dude and lock him up. They let him keep sending her nudes everywhere. And what else was it? Oh yeah, the cops made fun of her. The people in the school, teachers and students made fun of her, which this is very common, which I'm going to get into. And eventually she made a YouTube channel. She was holding up these like sticky notes, and they had like different words on them about how she was about to take herself out. She wasn't talking in the videos. And then eventually she took herself out. And as of now, you can't even find any of these videos or even the channel anymore. So there was that. And this happens all day, every day, which is another reason why it's funny that people are now like acting like they care. Even though it's very open that when something like this does happen to a kid, people blame the kid and make fun of them anyways. So, like, even if they literally completely had no choice and it just happened by whoever, commonly a relative, they'll still just tell the kid that they're fast and grown, especially because due to the ritual and just the trauma, the physical and spiritual side of it, they're gonna like end up hypersexual, maybe possibly, but even if they don't, they still get told that it's their fault and a whole bunch of other bull crap. Like one of the people that I know that this happened to, it just made school horrible, still is horrible, but they don't really go anyways. The teachers and students make fun of them, and of course, when you're known as like the kid who's always quote unquote sleeping with old men, or maybe women, but when guys get essayed by somebody who's not a relative and it's a female, they're usually made to feel like they're lucky and like they're not being abused. So really with girls, people their age don't want to be around them because you're known as the weird kid who's always sleeping with old men. And then you of course get called WHORE, a hoe, etc., etc. That's what they call the kids who are in these situations. But people care. Like this one girl even had the school resource officer, police officer, tell her that she was ruining her life. Which if you stay in this cycle or you put yourself in this cycle for a coping mechanism, I mean you really are. But the thing is, he got fired after a while because he was bringing the kids from the middle school to his house for different little quote-unquote parties. The boys and the girls. And so he got fired eventually. I think it was maybe East Coweta, whatever in the world, middle school. But I don't think he got charged though, but I guess that's why he was able to tell her that she's ruining her life, because he knows he's ruining people's lives. And then, of course, her classmates help spread the different abuse around, and pretty much nobody in the school would talk to her, and they still won't. So, yeah. Another person, but this person is older now. She's 28. And same situation. Really physically abusive, actually crazily physically abusive parents. Mixed kid trauma. So both parents were, of course, Jezebelic. The dad is also a choma because the mom is way too young for him. I'm sure he had the little complex going because, of course, realistically, most black women do have the Jezebel spirit. And then these dudes go through all this trauma with their single moms. And so then they think, well, I'm just going to get with a white woman because maybe that'll fix all my issues. And then they get with a white woman who also has the Jezebel spirit, and they have the Jezebel spirit themselves being the dude. And then they had the little Jezebelic, Willie Lynch little duo going. So they would do karate on their kids, because that's what you do. What is it called? Discipline? Literal karate though. Like when I say karate, people may think, oh, you mean like no. Like actual Taekwondo. And there was that part. The lady says that she first got essayed, or at least the first one she remembers, was actually in school, but also probably by her dad as well. And then that led to what it led to. Older guys, or getting with older guys, manipulation, grooming. And then the common little nude blackmail situation. And then people at school are making fun of her because her quote unquote corn, which is really abuse imagery, went viral. Supposedly viral anyways. Viral enough at least in the small town. Which that's a horrible situation to be in a small town. Because like that can mean, I mean anything could be viral in a place as small as that place. But that happened. Then people at the school were making fun of her. Teachers made fun of her. And they even hung nooses on her locker and told her that she should take herself out. Then a whole bunch of other stuff happened. She tried to take herself out, but it didn't end up working. And then, of course, her abusive parents just told her that she was a coward and that's why she was trying to take herself out, that she has no accountability. And these are the people that become, maybe I could call it gerontophile apologeticists, or apologetics, however the word is. I don't know. Actually, that is what I should call the complex. Gerontophile apologetics. When people push the belief system that when younger people befriend or date people their own age, then that means that they're a pedophile because instead of being the victim, they're instead of being the victim and being essayed by older people or dating, quote unquote, dating people who are too old for them or actually are pedophiles, they're being with people around their age. Even though typically, regardless of how old they are, they really never get out this cycle of getting with people who are way older than them. And I really would like to know exactly when this idea started. But as I've already been saying, it definitely is a strategic agenda to make younger people feel like they're, I don't know, criminals or messed up for talking to people their age instead of people who are way too old for them. Which it seems like the end results of this is misplaced charges or taking yourself out or just becoming a schizo narc as I call it. I also forgot to mention that when these supposed CPS, they call it, charges start to happen, the police typically take the kid's phone anywhere from 3 years to up to 5, or till the kid is 18 or older, to quote unquote find more evidence. No, they're not finding more evidence. They're downloading that stuff and saving it to their phone and doing whatever in the world with it. And the funny thing is, you're going through somebody's phone for more evidence, quote unquote, but you don't charge or lock up the actual abusers or find them, or you do find them, but you don't do anything. You just charge the kid. And then they put mandates that the kid isn't supposed to have a phone, but sometimes they'll just get another one. But that's the mandate anyway. Or really, what is it called? The probation is that you can't have a phone. And if you're found with a phone, you can go to jail. What else is it? And then they just wait till they're able to have a phone again, or wait till, really what they do, or what they're supposed to do is wait till the police give them that phone back, if they ever do.